Hello and welcome again to another episode of Sacktown Talks. Today we have a very special guest joining us. We have Assemblyman Carlos Villapudua joining us from the 13th Assembly District. Carlos, how's it going? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, our pleasure, our pleasure. You know, it's been kind of weird here locally. Usually you'd be able to make the rounds, do some meet and greets, but you came in here 2021 fresh in the middle of COVID. So kind of how have you been doing acclimating to Sacramento and, the Assembly?
Well, it reminds me of belonging to joining a new club, right? They all talk about these good old stories, right. What they used to do, and for me, it's been kind of it's new, right? So, but hearing the stories of what people used to do, I'm like ready to start those, interviews and having people come through the hallways and knock on the door, but it was tough. It was difficult. I'm not going to lie, because, when I got sworn in, I remember getting home where I couldn't have my wife or kids or family around me. I got home and they she asked, how did it go today? And it was like, what do you say? I just said it was kind of blah, right? It was nothing to it, right? Because there was no excitement. We're all more than 6 feet apart, and you couldn't talk to anyone.
Right.
I mean, it was some difficult, tough, challenging times right now. During that.
That's funny. Like, you'll talk to some members who were around in the 80s, and then they'll be like, "Oh, back in my day," and then like people in the 90s, "Oh, pre-term limits." That's funny. Pre-COVID, before COVID, we'd have people in the building. Right. We'd have lobby days. Yeah, different world. That's funny. That's funny.
It was. I mean, it was challenging, right? Because you also had to, go through hiring staff.
Right.
You don't know them. You haven't seen them. You're just kind of, everything is through Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the Zoom part was okay. I kind of enjoyed it. Coming in and getting to know people just through Zoom. Now, when you see folks around the Capitol, and they don't have their mask on,
right.
They're saying hi like them. You're kind of trying to figure out, like, where do I know you from? It's like we were on Zoom like a couple weeks ago.
Right. It's
so hard to put a name to a face, right?
Oh, totally.
But and I think it's going to be like that for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So kind of, I guess, let's talk a little bit, about your background before you got here and kind of your race. So what were you doing, before you came up to the Assembly, and kind of what made you want to run?
Well, let's see how far back do you want to go, but I actually lived in Sacramento years back. I graduated from Sac State. I worked for the Sheriff's Department for 5 years, left there, went into social service work, right, which I enjoyed. I really did. I became a community social service director for the county, which I really liked, because I was overseeing seniors, kids in our community, 9 community centers, where we had activities, throughout the day, Monday through Friday. And it was actually there where I met a county supervisor, Dar Marenka, who I used to read about in the paper, and see him and see all the good things he was doing. And it wasn't until one day he showed up in my office, and he wanted to talk to me about, he thought he heard a rumor that I was thinking about leaving. And I told him, no, I wasn't thinking about leaving, unless I'm getting fired or something, right? He goes, no, because I had 50 seniors walk up today at a county board of supervisors, and that I didn't know about, right? And they were literally kind of telling the board, that, hey, if you get rid of this guy, we voted you in, we'll vote you out. And so he appeared in my office that day. And he goes, well, are you leaving? I kept saying, no, I'm not leaving at all. And he goes, well, and he told me the whole story. And from that talk, just meeting this guy who walked in my office, where my heartbeat, just started coming out of my shirt, right? We built this relationship. He asked me what I needed in the community. And I said, well, we had 9 community centers. I would love to have vans for our kids, more programs for seniors, expansion in our centers. And, he assisted us with all that. Then a year later, he's asked me to come work for him. And I just literally just said no. I wasn't a public speaker. I don't know anything about politics. What am I going to do? And he says, well, think about it. Like most of us, what do? We go to our parents, right? And that's exactly what I did. I went to go talk to my dad and my mom. And the first thing my dad asked, he goes, which one pays more, you know? And I told my dad, literally, I said, Dad, I said, listen, I lose my civil service and I take a cut pay. And he goes, well, you know, well, that would be not smart to take that. Don't do that, you know. But my mom over here, the angel, was always the one saying, hey, maybe this will open up some more opportunities for you. And I thought about it, and a year later, I took it on. Hated it the first 2 months, literally hated it because I was behind a desk. You know, I felt like I was shackled to it. And here I am, like to be, if there's something wrong, I like to, you know, go out and see what's with my own eyes, you know. And he finally released the shackles and said, here, you know, run and do what I want you to do. But at the same time, if you want to go see if there's a problem or an issue in our community, you know, then do so. And I worked for him for 5 years, and when there was a vacant seat, I ran, and I won. I was a 2-term county supervisor. When I turned out, I went into the private sector. I became CEO of the Hispanic Chamber. Then I partnered up with a trucking school. So we opened up a small trucking school within the district, and then 2 years later is when I started getting phone calls that 8013 seat was, you know, going to be open. And, you know, we basically, again, we went around the community, you know, asked folks what they thought, you know, should I run? You know, it wasn't something that I needed to decide on my own. I needed to get the community's buy-in, you know, and their input. And after several meetings, I kind of got their blessing. And I remember sitting down with my wife, and she was saying, well, if you're going to run like you ran the very first time, you know, run hard, you know, and we did, you know, and it was great, right? We won the primary, and then guess what? COVID hit. It was right March, that March primary, huh? Wow. Yeah. I mean, it was basically the not just the city, but the world shut down, right? And
was that a Dem-on-Dem primary?
It was.
Okay.
It was Dem-on-Dem.
And were you the leading vote getter?
Was.
Okay.
Yeah. We won the primary. I remember it very clearly. It was like I gave all my volunteers like a week and a half or two, you know, just to kind of rest up and you know, catch up. And then it was late March, when we started thinking about what we were going to be doing, copying everything we did in the primary, right? But adding a few more components to it. And then COVID hit. We were right in the middle of the pandemic, you know, and we were trying to figure out what can we do different now that we can't go. But and then you go back. I mean, part of the campaign was canvassing. We canvassed, you know, 6 days a week, 5 days a week. I mean, we really hit the pavement, you know, hard, knocking on doors. So we believed if we walk, we win. And we couldn't do any walking, we couldn't do any knocking, we couldn't do any of that because we're right in the middle of the pandemic. So we were just trying to figure out what can we do different. And there's a lot of news that a lot of folks out there didn't know about where to go. You know, if you needed, you know, assistance, you know, unemployment, housing assistance, PG&E assistance, we were going live, you know, on social media. What I was doing every week, I was going out to listen to this Tracy City Council meetings. I was listening to the County Board of Supervisors meetings, and literally had a whiteboard, and I was writing down everything, you know, what they were messaging out to their community. So I was messaging that out to my followers, right? Where to go get food, where to apply for assistance for emergency food, where to go, who to talk to about, unemployment, where to file, right? All of the emergency needs that one was trying to figure out how to do this. We were just literally on social media, 2 to 3 times a week. And then on top of that, I realized the number one need was food. So I started volunteering my time at Oasis Community Center. And they had a setup that was so organized. I mean, where you had no contact with anyone. We were all spreaded, more than 6 feet, 10 feet apart. Mm-hmm. We had 3 different lanes for cars to pull up. They would pop their trunk, right? Open up the trunk. They didn't get out. We loaded up a box or 2 of food in their cars. And that was going on 3 to 4 times a week. So we were doing social media live there, that here's where we are, here's where you can come, here are the hours. And it was nice because, we were trying to show that as a person that really wanted to win this seat, a person that really wanted to be involved in our community, here we're doing it now.
Yeah, it's like you just assumed the job. You just created a field office and went with it.
Yeah, so it was great. It was more. It wasn't so much of a photo op. It was really the emergency of the needs of folks, right?
Yeah, jumping right in.
Yeah, I remember sitting next to someone that was kind of 8 feet, and he mentioned, he goes, that caught my ear. He goes, look at all these nice cars coming through, and I remember looking at him and saying, and nothing negative, right? I was just thinking to myself, here's the time that no one should be bashful. No one expected this to happen to us. No one knew, what was going to be, what was going to be next. What was behind the unknown. Right. Because a lot of us were kind of sitting there going, what you would hear about on TV, right? You hear about what's going on in different countries, different cities. It was right in front of us too. It wasn't something that we can sit there and just listen. We were all experiencing all of that,
right?
So it was a great experience for me because it gave me what an emergency officer would do, right? You don't have hours or weeks to plan out. You have to react now.
Right.
You have to react right then and try to figure out what can you do. So I would, I had friends and family that were asking me too, who should I turn to? But it was really nice, that the fact that we had access to food. It's really nice that this state, and I got to say this country, when there's a need, we step up. Mm-hmm. There's no hesitation, and I'm so excited, that I'm here because not only did I experience it prior to getting here, I'm experiencing it here now as a freshman legislator, right? To approve, to hit that red button, that green button, the yes to support of what should go out in our state. How do we help others? And that's the good thing about, my colleagues from both sides of the aisle, right? Not just Democrats, but Republicans that are sitting here, working together to try to do what's good for our community,
right.
Our state.
The interesting thing, being from the Stockton area, it's kind of one of the, I guess, most productive areas. You have the port there, kind of right where the valley meets the water. So there's a lot of import, export, a lot of truck driving, agriculture things going on. What have you noticed during COVID? How has COVID affected, I guess, Stockton and kind of the economy? As a lot of things were coming in and out, and did that stop for a while? And how's it recovering?
Yeah, no, I remember picking up my brother-in-law from San Jose at 3:30 in the afternoon, right, like May, June, I think it was, right before they were going to close the border of Mexico. And I remember calling up my sister-in-law and saying he needs to get back because they're going to shut that down. And I remember picking him up in San Jose airport, and it was 3:30 in the afternoon. and he was just at awe, right? So was I, because you're stuck in traffic
Right.
for hours, right? We cruised on in like if it was 3:00 in the morning with no traffic. There wasn't hardly any cars or trucks. It's been difficult for the business community, trying to get back on their feet, because it's for many cases, right? I mean, now trying to hire folks, it's been difficult. The trucking industry was basically shut down. San Joaquin County is the hub of the trucking industry.
Right.
You got warehouses after warehouses, and it was a ghost town. I mean, when you drove around, throughout the freeway or around San Joaquin County, it was just a ghost town. People was scared. Businesses were calling to try to figure out, what can they do? What kind of assistance can we help them with? It was one of those things that, it wasn't, again, you needed to try to figure out how can we help them, and it was nice to try to at least get some of the business grants going, which was nice that we provided that. But I gotta tell you, it was all hands on deck with staff, even capital staff, right? Working on EDD cases, getting people to help them file.
Right.
I mean, you got a lot of folks that just don't know even how to use the computer, we're sitting there trying to help them get them through. And then, we were just involved with the ag community too, trying to figure out, okay, who, it was the vaccinations were now starting to come out, right? How we're going to do the vaccinations. And there was an order, right? There was, all of the essential workers, but we also wanted to make sure that we were also going to get our ag community vaccinated. I mean, here are folks that, the first contact on food are our ag community, so we didn't want to cut in line, but we wanted to be in line.
Right.
So yeah, it was, you name it, it was difficult for all of us, but we're still getting through it. It's still difficult. We're still doing those EDD cases in our office. Crazy. I mean, we had, I think we closed out last week 230 cases, and then we pick up another couple more hundred, you know. So it's hard, right? Because we're also getting the business community that is hiring. They're hiring. You name it. Every job is right now needing workers. So we're really trying to advertise that.
Yeah. One of the more interesting thing as a freshman coming in is kind of that meeting with the speaker and kind of seeing what committees you're going to be on and kind of what's your future going to look like. Kind of how was your meeting with the speaker and kind of what committees did you want? What committees did you end up getting here this year?
Yeah. Good question. Obviously there's you'll put your request in, of what you would like to have, and he's gonna delegate what he thinks you should have, right? So I think we put in like 10. I don't remember every committee we asked for, but a lot of business committees that I wanted to sit on, right? But obviously I couldn't get it. But I got on human service, which was for me okay. I was glad to be on human service.
You got some good experience there.
Yeah, I mean, having a social work degree, knowing how the counties work, knowing how anything when it comes to food banks, programs for those who are in need.
Right.
I was somewhat aware of it. So sitting on Human Service Agency committee was great. We also sit on Parks and Wildlife, which is nice because what did we learn from this? So we learned that our parks are essential. Right. I mean, people were just going out to parks even when when the pandemic, when people were telling you can't go there, people were exercising. They needed to still keep their health and mentally had to go out there, right? Just to get away from being home locked down all day. But I'm glad I sit on that committee because I realized that I not only do I want to have more parks, we need to expand on them. We need to beautify them. We need to also, protect our water. So we also talk about water issues, which is, probably something I probably wanted to end with. But we're having those talks now. I mean, the drought has hit us. We've never been hit this hard since 1970s.
Which is crazy because we've had some bad years lately. So
really, really bad, right? I mean, so another committee I sit on is rules, which is nice because I just got off a meeting, listening to what rules we need to continue practicing within the Capitol, and even though a lot of folks think that the pandemic's over,
right.
It's not. We need to still continue practicing, keeping our, I know a lot of people feel safe now because they're vaccinated, but there's still people getting COVID, even with the vaccination.
Right.
So we're still, preaching those words to make sure that, hey, keep your distance, try to stay safe with, amongst friends, try to stay away from the big crowds,
right.
But that's still our message.
It's interesting because, the Capitol's opened up a little bit. People are hoping to get in-person meetings and things like that. Again, it kind of slightly opened up here. And now, we've had, 7 or 8 cases of staff catching COVID.
Yeah.
I guess, what are you guys talking about? Are you guys talking about, keeping on with the current rules or kind of going back to the old? Or
I think we're going to still stay with where we're at, but make sure that some of the other folks, like, there's... And I don't mean other. There's so many of us at the
right.
Capitol, right, that we're all vaccinated, right, and that we're going to continue maybe bring back testing. So that's going to be critical.
Right.
There's some members that may get into an example, like they might get into a car and then 2 or 3 members. I think we're going to go back to making sure that there's only one member in the automobile or the van. And then still keeping our distance, still making sure that we wear our mask. That's kind of what I heard. I'm not sure if we're going to go back to wearing our masks inside the office. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. That's kind of the talk where we're at right now.
Interesting. You just kind of wrapped up, I guess, your first budget season. Kind of what do you think about the budget, and kind of were you able to get anything for your community in this year's budget?
Yeah. So I was excited about that, right? I mean, here's my first year. When I'm so used to like asking for a couple $100,000
right.
or not in the millions, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's I during going back to the pandemic, I realized the folks that were around helping out a lot. I was kind of measuring everyone, who was doing good, who was doing well. And I put in for some funding for Oasis Community Center, right? Because I really saw that they stepped up, without no hesitation, and they had no funding from government. They had no funding from the county, no funding from the city.
Right.
There were just a lot of folks that were contributing, and they made it work, right? But I sat down with staff, after, and I said, hey, what else would you guys want to do here? And they basically said, listen, we have no refrigeration here. We want to make sure that we can add more refrigeration. We want to make sure that we have some vans for our kids so when they get out of school, we can pick them up and bring them back to the center. And I'm a firm believer of that because, if you can get them from school into a center, during that break is when a lot of our kids could deviate and do something different, right?
Exactly.
Or do something wrong, right? Let's be honest, right? So to get them back in the center, create some senior programs, create family programs in there. So I asked them to kind of put a budget together, and we staff that I'm very thankful assist them also to kind of think, not just for today, think about it like 5 years down the line. So during the budget, we got $5 million for them. Which is huge for us, right? I mean, as a first time freshman on campus to get $5 million for a community center, I actually kind of leaked it a little early. I said, hey, listen, if they sign it today, then it goes to the governor, but I think you're going to get it. And all I heard on the phone were literally weeps. They were crying. They were crying on the phone, right? Because they've had so many people come through and take tours, and no one's ever stepped up to help them. But I got to thank my staff, because they're the ones that really put this together. And it's not us, it's them.
Right.
They're the ones that really have stepped up during the pandemic, even prior to that, to help our community. And it's in a pocket in North Stockton that if you drive around there, there's no community center. There's nothing around there. And I've been trying to figure out how can we help them. I'm the one that was actually got the chairman of the board of the county board of supervisors to take a tour to really consider adopting them. Even though they're in the city, I explained to them, I said, listen, you get a lot of folks that are from all kinds of different zip codes that come here. So fast forward, we got the $5 million, and we're going to wait and sit with staff and then assist them all the way through. We're just excited because we know that it's going to go into the community, and it's going to go to nothing but good.
That's awesome. Kind of one thing you kind of talked about earlier was kind of, hiring your staff and kind of interviewing through Zoom. Kind of who's helped you kind of show you the ropes up here and how things operate, and kind of mentored you through the process up here so far?
Well, I got to say, Israel Londa. Okay, Israel's my go-to guy that goes with. He does all of our, checks and balances when it comes to the bills, right? And I remember when I got a stack of resumes, and I was kind of going through a bunch. And I was scratching my head trying to figure out how do you pick, how do you pick the winner out of this? Because they're all these resumes, they were sharp, and then you can't interview them like we're talking, right? And it was through Zoom, and probably within my third interview, I was done. I had gotten a call from a few folks that were up here, and I submitted some names. I said, "Hey, here's some folks I like. Can you give me some input?" And believe it or not, Israel Londa was like number one, and some of the friends that were helping me had Israel also as number one. Like, it was like when football and baseball go through
the draft.
The draft, right? Exactly. It was like the draft, right? And I was like, I can't believe that this guy's still on
the board.
Still on the board, right? And here we are. I basically kind of just talked to him, and the first day I met him on the floor. He took me down to the floor, and we just sat there and we chatted for a good 45 minutes. And I just knew then that I knew I had a winner in our corner, and he's just been instrumental, not just by getting me around the Capitol, but extremely knowledgeable when it comes to the bills, how to talk to either the folks that are trying to help you, lobbyists that are trying to come through the doors. And what I like about Israel, you don't ever see, like a bad bone in his body. If a person is trying to talk to you, he never sees the person as negative. He always figures out how can we turn something that a person's trying to talk to you into something positive, right? And he's like that with my staff. He's a mentor for everyone. He's just very knowledgeable. So we're just excited to have him. I'm going to make sure, that when November comes, when I can give a raise, he's the first person I'm going to give a raise, because I want to make sure I don't lose him. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
hold on to him. That's
I got to. Yeah.
So this year you're starting up. What's your bill package looking like? We've just gone, I guess, to the other house. How many bills you start with? How many you have left? And how's your session looking? Yeah.
So obviously we could only have 12 get through, right? I mean, there's one that went to a 2-year. We're looking at obviously you've heard about our pollinator bill, right? So our pollinator bill was nice because we got an early call from the governor's office that not only did he like it, he loved it, right? Because it was, one out of every third bite comes from pollination, right? So this bill was huge for the ag community, especially, right? Folks that, when you look at our fruits, are an example. Let's say almonds, right? I mean, you can't grow them without it being pollinated.
Right.
So, when we first put in for it, we thought hopefully we'll cross our fingers. Maybe we'll get 5. We ended up getting 30 million for it.
Wow.
Which was nice, right? So this is the pollinating for habitat. This would help them to make sure that they're protected and they're growing. Because it's we're having some issues in the state of California. And we want to protect that.
Right.
We want to protect that we're not just trying to assist them with funding, but we're also trying to feed the state and the world.
Yeah, no, I think we have some ridiculous amount of responsibility in our hands in terms of food. I think it's like 1/8 of the world's food or something like that comes from San Joaquin Valley. So that's crazy. And I guess we need those bees working away.
Yeah. Then we had AB 931 police officer duty to intervene. Right. That's been actually getting a lot of good publicity. This year. We were trying to figure out, the word of reform has been, front page of every newspaper. And we were trying to figure out, what can we do differently? What can we do, coming back from a background in law enforcement, right? I mean, where I was always pushing to triage folks, right? As they come through our jail, our number one thing was always to try to make sure we were triaging, but we weren't doing it then.
Right.
And intervene is huge, because if you see something wrong, and I say this bill is not just for law enforcement. I'm talking if you're a nurse, you're a doctor, if you're a pilot, and you see something wrong, you should be able to intervene and stop what's going on, right? You can save many, many lives.
Right.
And when we started talking about this bill, we wanted to also let law enforcement know that, listen, we're not trying to hurt you guys. We're not trying to go against you. We're actually trying to help you. We're trying to figure out what other tool can we give you, right? And we know that a lot of it has to do with training,
right?
So this bill basically is that. It will force law enforcement to have more training, to go through those situations, when they have to make an arrest or they're at the scene, that they have a voice, that they can stop, even if their sergeant's there and he's or lieutenant, that you can stop that person, you can stop your coworker, or your partner, before he or she makes a mistake. It actually gives them the tools, it gives them the knowledge, and this is what that bill is about.
Right.
Yeah. So, and we're excited that we also got all state and law enforcement to support it, give it thumbs up, and
that's great.
And this bill actually passed, the assembly with both Republicans and Democrats support. It was nice to see that.
Yeah, kind of after seeing kind of that George Floyd video, it's kind of like, how did those other guys not intervene? And glad you're doing that so that, doesn't happen here down the road. And, one final bill I see is you got 1471 dealing with the Public Utilities Commission. Kind of what's that bill about? Kind of what are you looking to do there?
So, I mean, San Joaquin County, I mean, if you look at how diverse we are, I mean, we have every culture around. And where we've also had all of the blackouts, right? I mean, when PG&E goes to his issues, we're probably one of the first to experience that, Northern California. And it's not to take it away from the Bay Area at all. It's to really put it to where it belongs, and this bill is really to have a say-so, when it comes to our energy. It has a say-so from our folks from our community that literally have walked that walk. And we want to make it diverse.
Right.
So, and it's not just folks from Northern California. We committed to making sure that we have, someone from Southern California, someone from Northern California, and someone from the Central Valley to sit on that committee to make those decisions, to help out with those decisions, because we just can't continue just to have a one one-minded group to make decisions. We got to have it to where it's so diverse that that it's felt.
Right.
You know, so we're excited today that it did pass today. The Senate committee today. Today. So we're excited. So now it'll go before the Senate committee. So.
Oh. Great. One thing you just kind of touched upon earlier, what's so important to, your district is water, right? You have the import-export stuff through the Bay. You're right there at the forefront of the ag community. And, as you also mentioned, you said on the parks, and there's, we had Senator Eggman on earlier, and she talks about the balance you need, right? Between wildlife and agriculture and commerce. The drought's being touched upon a little bit here. It's getting some news, but how dire it is in some of these Northern California communities is amazing. Kind of what are your thoughts right now on the drought and how's it affecting your community and kind of what can be done, I guess?
Well, I'll tell you, again, being new here, I was trying to figure out the same question.
Right.
What can I do as, not just because I'm a freshman, because I know I live in an ag community. I just recently reorganized the Central Valley Caucus, right? So I met with them yesterday. I had Republicans and Democrats, at the table, trying to figure out, where either did the baton get lost, or where are we?
I didn't even know there was a Central Valley Caucus.
Yeah. Well,
Bay Area
we're getting it up and going again,
nice.
Right? So it was nice. I had folks like Heath Flora, Bigelow, Gray, Cooper, myself, Joaquin, Rumbla, these and Salas. So we had a good table of folks going back and forth of what should have happened. Bills that probably got killed years ago, promises that should have been kept, right? And they weren't kept. And I was hearing all the kind of the negative issues of it, but I was kind of like, okay, guys, we're done with that. Let's talk about what do we do next?
Right. What's tomorrow?
What do we do next here? And these veterans that were sitting at the table, they were happy to the fact that our office is really thinking about it. We don't need what we need right now is to pick up where we left. If there was a promise given, we need to keep that promise. Right. And the funding's there, right? We need to figure out how we capture that water. How do we build new dams, right? I mean, that's going to be the question. If the funding's there, then we need to execute that, and we need to keep that promise going. So it was a great talk. I've asked everyone, listen, for the next 2 days, I want you to kind of sleep on it because we're so behind that this is an emergency. Mm-hmm. When you hear about what some of the other counties like, I was listening to Senator Hurtado speak the other day, how in her counties, in certain parts of her counties, that folks have to go to the next city to fill up their truck with water so that they can use it, just to flush their restroom, right? We're California. Yeah. We should not be living like that, especially when we help so many others from, different parts of the state and the world. No one should be living like that, right? So I think these talks are essential. They're important, and it's going to happen. So I hate to tell you that stay tuned, but stay tuned. We're gonna learn more this upcoming Monday of what we want to present. So we're gonna sit down with budget chair Ting, and give him a list of where we're at and what we need to do, and hopefully that he can put it on the budget to get this done. Right. Yeah, it's important, right? I mean, it's here's the way I look at it: is that if we don't do something about it now, a year from now, you're going to see it at your grocery stores. You're going to see it when you're sitting there paying more on either milk or your all of your veggies, they're sky high. It's because this is something that we should have been talking. We don't do this. When it comes to fires, we only talk about when it's fire season, right? It should not be water season. We should be always having this talk and we got to get it done. It's important, right?
Well, it seems like
we're
the
California.
last 10 years we've had this talk, and it really hasn't led to kind of solution. And kind of, in Southern California, people, where there is no water, people have swimming pools and lawns, and people in the valley, as you're saying, don't have portable water. That's a big problem. So
and what we need to do is also bring folks from Southern California to understand ag. How important that is. Where I come from, 3 out of every 5 jobs are ag related, and we need to protect that. We need to continue to protect that, because we don't just feed this state, we feed this nation, we feed this world.
Right.
Yeah.
Well put. Before we go, you're a freshman. Freshmen usually get hazed somehow, once or throughout the session. Kind of, what are some of the things that people have done to kind of give you a hard time this year being a freshman?
Well, there's a couple. I did get hazed on the Republican side. I had a wine growler bill, right? So it's like like a beer growler bill. I heard members right before they were going to vote on it, they were talking about, well, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't vote on this today. Maybe we should go to Napa and talk about it there, And I was kind of looking around the room. I was going, I caught on real quick. Okay, these guys are hazing me right now, right? So it was nice that they all got up after, kind of like, knuckled me, congratulations on your bill. I've had some members on the floor, like Assemblymember Ramos. So in the back of the room, to the far right corner, we have like 4 Mexicans. We call it El Barrio, right? So these guys were all like, every time I get to the floor, like, hey, bring me coffee. I'm like, okay, I bring them coffee. Hey, I want you to bring some donuts up. I'm like, all right, I'll bring some donuts up. So I got a little hazed by then. There's all these different like caucus. There's a Firestone caucus, right? So they kind of teased me about, hey, you should join. You get this like green jacket. So I've been meeting with them for like 3 times already, and I keep asking for my jacket. Then they finally said, no, it's not a jacket, it's more of a windbreaker. So I'm like, okay, am I getting one or no? But I know it's all fun and games. But yeah, no, I mean, my colleagues have been great. They've been very supportive. Anytime I need to, talk to them about an issue, or a lot of times they call me and they'll if I need to, pick their brain or explain, something, even some audibles on the floor that I'm trying to figure out what just happened, they'll explain it to us or explain it to me. So it's been great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You touched upon this earlier, your social media and kind of, how you kind of campaigned a bit. Kind of for our listeners at home, how can we follow you online or through social media if we want to?
So Ben, who's here, I didn't really talk about Ben. Ben has been, Ben Sheaver, he's been so good when it comes to my social media. Nice. I even had the speaker come up to me and he goes, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but you're killing it out there. I am, because you don't follow yourself, right?
Okay, it's like, Ben, we got a little plug out there.
So yeah, no, and I do my own personal too, right? For folks that I'm trying to get them to come over,
right?
But it's been great. A lot of people I'll be around town, and they'll stop me and say, hey, Carlos, you're doing a really good job. I heard what you did the other day. And it's nice. It's so nice when you're just in your community and people stopping you and they're acknowledging you, what you've done, right? I don't follow myself. I don't sit there and, once it's done, I kind of go on to the next, item on the chalkboard, right? But it's nice that I have a good staff that literally are helping us to get that message out there. Again, it's not about a photo op, it's about getting our message out there.
Right.
We're still, again, not out of the pandemic. There's still a lot of needs, a lot of emergency issues that we have, and we really try to make sure that we're pushing out. Like right now, there's assistance for our renters assistance right now for those who fell behind, for that, there's funding for that. And this is like the 3rd round. And the first 2 rounds, it's not that we just didn't hit it right. We didn't message that right. So now we're trying to make sure that we're doing that in our community, let people know that there is assistance for that.
That's cool. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to join us. Loved hearing the stories and look forward to hearing more, especially about that Central Valley caucus.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Looking forward to come back.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos.
All right.
Have a good one.
Some are called dreamers.